Following up on a story we brought you yesterday, Kenyan police say they have Mohammed Abdi Ali in custody after his arrest last Friday. Ali is suspected of being a key member of an Islamist militant group that was plotting attacks similar to the 2013 Westgate shopping mall attack. Police say the foiled plot included plans for a biological terror attack using anthrax, an infectious bacteria that spreads rapidly once spores get into the body. For more insight on this story, joining us on the phone from Nairobi is Ty McCormick of Foreign Policy magazine. Good evening, Ty.
Hi, good evening. Thanks for having me on.
Since the Kenyan authorities made this announcement, Ty, what more do we know about this foiled plot?
Well, you know, Esther, I think what we should say right off the bat is that basically everything we know about this supposed ISIS anthrax plot comes from that initial press statement from Kenyan authorities. Police claim that they arrested this medical student who was plotting along with several accomplices this biological attack, which they said was going to be on the scale of the Westgate mall attack, which of course killed 67 people in 2013. But beyond that, we really don't know much. You know, how imminent was this attack? Was anthrax actually discovered inside Kenya? What was the target? How was ISIS actually involved? I think authorities have said that the group was, quote, ISIS-linked, but they haven't named it and they haven't elaborated on those linkages.
So, Ty,
I think it's also worth noting. Oh, go ahead, please.
Yes, so given that not much is really known at this point, are Kenyans skeptical about this announcement, or are they cautious about the threat of terror?
Sure, I think Kenyans rightly have a lot of questions here. Several human rights activists have come forward and said that some of the suspects had previously been arrested and that this entire plot had been concocted after the fact in order to mask their disappearances. So I think without a great deal more information, it's impossible to say which one of these narratives is closer to the truth, or, you know, if both of them contain elements of the truth. Of course, it does make a certain amount of sense that the Islamic State would want to make inroads in Kenya. There are plenty of targets in Kenya that there aren't in, say, Somalia. And there's at least some degree of popular support for ISIS here. But do they actually have the organizational capacity to make something like this happen? I just don't think that there's evidence to suggest that they do.
And Ty, given that the authorities have mentioned terrorist groups like ISIS, is there any call from the Kenyan authorities for international help or intervention in trying to foil a possible terrorist attack in Nairobi?
Well, I think you've hit on something important, which is that, you know, these are governments, the Kenyan government and other governments in the region, the Ugandan government, the Somalian government, in particular, that have made a great deal. They benefited greatly from the war on terror. They've gotten security assistance they would be able to muster on their own. So the bigger and the scarier, and the more we're being on top of defeating that threat, I think the more serious it is, since they're likely to squeeze out of Western governments. So to the extent, I think that this could very well be an incidence of highlighting that may actually in order to, for the long run,
All right, Ty, we're getting a little trouble with the phone there, but thank you so much for your insight. Ty McCormick is a journalist with Foreign Policy magazine, speaking to us from Nairobi, Kenya.